Welcome to the Grand Collaborations, a part of the Grand Podcast. Welcome to the Grand Podcast, the EU funding podcast. Now, this is the second episode in my first commercial sign, Enspire Science. You have just heard the first episode with Andrea Radkosova on the coordination dilemma, where we dug into the coordination. Now, as you know, or as you have heard from the first in this series, is that this is a commercial collaboration that I made together with Enspire Science. And today I have the director on board for the second one in this series. Hello, Johan.
Hello. How are you?
Nice to have you on board. And again, thank you so much for wanting to set up this collaboration.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's a milestone for the grant to move on in my own development. I'm very, very happy about this. Now, Yoram, today we're going to talk about something that I've actually wanted for my normal stream, the grant, on the lump sum budget principle that the Commission has put into or launched in Horizon Europe. And this is something that you've been engaged with this, you've been doing them, been writing proposals, you are coordinating proposals and running projects with this principle. So this is something that you want to share with my listeners, how this principle works, and it fits perfectly well with the grant in sharing how different principles and new principles they are running. So, but before we get so far, few words about yourself and also, of course, on Enspire Science.
Sure. So we're a company which focuses on these EU grants with managing, coordinating, consulting, and training applicants for many years. Personally, I'm involved in the EU funding for these kind of grants for about 25 years by now. And I've seen quite a lot of projects and applicants so far. And we are always happy to work with new applicants, of course, and to share our knowledge, which I believe is beneficial to many applicants and people that are interested in these grants.
Yeah, and Inspire Science, you're very strong on the research part.
Correct. We are focusing mainly on the more scientific areas, but it's not limited to that. We have an internal team that consists of people with a scientific background. So we are mixing both the administrative, technical, and financial aspects from one side and in-depth scientific reviews on the other side. We're covering, of course, more scientific grants like the ERC, but not only these, we're basically covering all bases in Horizon Europe, including, of course, Pillar 2, EAC, and the other areas.
Yeah. Let's just have a jump at it, at the lump sum fly-in. So, can you say a few words to sort of in the introduction to it? So what happened? Why? What is what is this all about?
Well, yes, I want to say that it's kind of the new kid on the block, but it's not actually new. There were some attempts in the past to work in a lump sum model in these grants. There was a pilot that was considered successful by the European Commission, and now the lump sum looks like it's everywhere. It's something which we can see in many areas in the program. And then, in a nutshell, the lump sum model is the funding model, which also entails everything that you have to do with the financial reporting and the payments, which is supposed to be simpler than the previous model that was applied, which is named, the traditional one is the actual cost model. We'll discuss it in more detail later on. But basically, they want to make the life easier to the people that execute these projects under the Horizon Europe program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyways, that's something the commission is almost always aware about, in spite of the fact that many people think that they're not. They are actually aware of the simplification, making life just a little bit easier, because they do know that it can be complex.
Right.
Yeah. Nah, Yoram, we've been sending back and forth on how to approach this program, and you wanted to first start out with the principles. So, the principles of the lump sum, sort of the baseline. So, what is it? Motivation? Why did they start? Now we just shared a little bit, but
So yeah, motivation first is that, as I said, to make things easier. And in order to understand that, we need to keep in mind the traditional actual cost model. And so I will tap into that shortly, because we need to understand the differences, but not always it's relevant. But still, the idea here is that they want us to be able to report less on the actual utilization of the budget while executing the project. The idea behind that is that if we need to report less, it means less administrative burden for
yeah,
the, of course, for the beneficiaries, meaning the people that are executing the project. And to some extent, maybe they're also thinking about themselves. I'm talking about the people in the commission that need to check all this. So that's roughly the motivation to do that. They did it in a kind of a method of simplification of what should be reported, as I'm going to present. But this is what we need to keep in mind. This is the overall theme here. Having something which is simpler to execute, simpler to report, simpler to manage.
yeah. So, what did they? So what? Let's have a look at the difference between the traditional actual cost model and this. What did they do?
So here, the main thing that they did is to kind of relieve the beneficiaries from keeping, let's say, full track and detailed track on all expenses. Explicitly, the main target, let's say, most common target that they had in mind here are the timesheets. Because in the traditional actual cost model, which prevailed so far, you had to report on your labor costs by providing the evidence. The evidence was a detailed timesheet that each employee that was working on the project and exploiting the budget of the project, for that matter, had to sign a detailed timesheet on a monthly basis, and you had to keep all these timesheets in your records until the point where they are reviewed or audited at some point. And this was considered kind of, let's say, a major headache to a lot of administrative and financial managers in the institutions. The lump sum model says you don't need to do that because it works in a different way. We are working in a much simpler method. So that's the main thing to keep in mind when comparing to the traditional actual cost model. Of course, if you have past experience, it's important for you to realize all these differences and minor issues when comparing to the old model. But if you're a newcomer, it doesn't really matter to you. Just follow the lead of the lump sum.
Yeah. Now you put here, you don't choose in the rundown. You put here a bullet saying you don't choose the LS model; it chooses you.
Exactly. So,
what do you mean with that?
This is kind of a very common question that we get. The lump sum model sounds very attractive to many, and for good reasons. And therefore, we see a lot of people coming and saying, "I want to apply to a specific topic and use the lump sum model." Now, the issue here is that in each topic in the program, the European Commission specified which model you can use. And it's either the actual cost model or the lump sum model. You cannot change. It's not something that you can choose. If you have a target, if you are targeting a specific topic, you simply need to follow the rules and use the cost model that is associated with this topic. So this is not something that you can play with. Now let me jump into let's say the main principle of applying the lump sum model, because it's important to understand what exactly it's all about and how to refer to that. And it's also the main difference compared to the traditional actual cost model.
Yeah.
The lump sum cost model puts the work package in the center. What does it mean? It means that they are going to pay for the work that is done in the project only for completed work packages, nothing else. Meaning, unlike what we have done before in the traditional actual cost model, where you've been working in the project, you were working in a specific work package, and you had some cost associated with your work, which can span over several work packages. At the reporting period, you simply reported your actual costs until that point, regardless of the work package structure. That was the old one. And as I said earlier, it was kind of a high resolution reporting because you had to provide evidence to all the expenditures that you had during this time. But lump sum says you don't need to do that anymore. From now on, we are focusing on the actual work, not the actual expenditure. And the way for them to implement it is by saying whether a specific work package is completed or not, was completed or not. Once a work package is completed within the respective reporting period, if indeed it's completed, all the participants, all the beneficiaries that were working in this work package will be paid for the work in the work package according to the budget plan. So this is the center, and it's basically, I'm always saying now the work package is the king, meaning you need to focus on that. And it entails a lot of issues, a lot of questions which we can think of. But the first one that I want to mention is that now, compared to what we have done before, we have higher dependency on the performance of our partners. Because if you're working in a specific work package and one of the partners is not contributing as expected, and as a result of that, you will not complete the work package according to the plan, you might not get paid for this work package in the reporting period, in the specific reporting period. You might end it later on and get the payment for that later on. But
is this a good thing?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Yeah. But
it can raise a lot of questions and issues.
Have you been experiencing challenges in relation to this principle?
Not yet. We only started now recently. We are coordinating 2 new projects which are following the lump sum model. They're at relatively early stage, so far we don't have any issues about that. But it definitely raises a lot of questions and definitely something to address. And I would address this, the 3 critical points were to address it. The first one is when you prepare your application, you think about that. And of course, when selecting your partners. And then later on, once the project is selected for funding and you prepare the consortium agreement, you want the consortium agreement to refer to that. And there are several issues around that. And of course, during the execution time, you need to keep close eye and monitor the performance of partners that you're working with on specific work packages.
Yeah, I can also think of other side effects. it, wouldn't you be more hesitating opening up your consortium to partners you don't know so well?
That's a very good question again, and definitely a
Yeah.
common one. And I definitely think that we need to be more careful here when selecting the partners, when deciding exactly on how they are going to work with us. What is the level of dependency? I'm talking about the inner dependency within a specific work package. So these are all valid questions. Definitely something to pay a lot of attention to.
Yes, because like I'm a public administrator by university diploma. So regulation in this respect, this is regulation, right?
Mhm.
So you wanna change a principle of a budget principle, or funding principle, accountancy principle. What happens is you need to be aware of the side effects, because the commission is very keen on getting more organizations on board the R&D funding schemes that have not done this before. Yeah, they constantly want to. This is a sort of an agenda. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a back. They want more to join, also new.
Correct.
But if you put in a principle, accountancy principle, that makes people nervous. It makes old organizations that are used to it nervous about getting new ones on board in relation to finishing. If you don't get the funding, if you're not finished, this is nah. This is. I'm going to look forward to see what's going to happen
I agree.
in the real world
I
when it
I
rolls out.
agree because let's say that while definitely there is kind of a constant requirement to bring in new blood into the system, especially the SMEs and newcomers and early stage
Mhm.
researchers, and
Yeah,
all sorts of new faces into these projects. Here, you have something which actually is working in the other direction, meaning
yeah,
you want to actually work with more traditional players, people that you already experienced working with, that they fully understand and they have the full responsibility for the execution of this project according to the
yeah.
expectations of European Commission.
Yeah. This is obviously.
Yeah,
It's
in my eyes, um, this is an outcome of a process that they didn't really think it through because they were focusing on the financial implementation of that and less on the, let's say, uh, the way it's going to affect the execution, the partner selection, the consortium structure, etc.
but
But that's an implication.
Joram cannot tell me that you have these clever people in the commission rolling out such a system without we have been talking for 15 minutes, and we are talking about it, right?
Right.
Don't tell me that they haven't considered this. I'm sorry.
I'm
I'm
not
quite
saying
sure. I'm very sure. I'm sure that this is something that they have considered, but they have been putting the weight on the other leg.
let's put it like that. I don't know whether they consider it or not, but I do know that there is a gap between the way people who never implemented the European project think of the process and the people that actually implemented it. There are some gaps. And it's not the first time that I witnessed this gap. And maybe they thought about it and maybe they didn't. But as you say, it's not. Let's say it's not on dirt earth. It's not. It's not a problem for them to solve eventually.
No.
So still, we need to consider this. We need to face this. We need to work with that.
All right. Then, so you say also, so payments are not dependent on successful outcomes.
Right. So here I'm getting into an official statement. There are several official statements by the European Commission about lump sum. One of them is that the payments, they are going to pay for a completed work package, but it doesn't mean that the outcome of the work package should be successful. Now, this is a tricky thing because on one hand, yes, it is a very valid scenario that you will work on something, especially if you are in the high risk areas, and you will complete the work package and you are not successful. It is possible, and in that sense, it's fine. But then again, I can think of all sorts of other scenarios where not reaching a successful outcome also means that you didn't complete the work package. So I don't see exactly how they're going to mitigate that. I don't know. Still, that's an official statement by the European Commission. Payments do not depend on successful outcomes.
Okay, but that's I guess it's following. Yeah, I understand what you mean. But it's this principle that research always goes in different ways than you expect from the beginning, or innovation processes, and so they have to do it like this. Yeah, it's okay. You need to do what you wrote in your like the contract we made, but you don't always have success with the stuff that you make.
It's true. But we should also keep in mind that the lump sum model is applied also to, let's say, projects which are not focused on research, or work packages which are not research oriented. I can think of projects from the CSA type of projects on one hand, and we can think of work packages in an RIA type of project, which are not relying on research activities, but doing something else, something which is complementary to that. No. And then again, not being successful might say that you didn't complete the work package, and vice versa. That's again, so it's still an open thing. We don't know how exactly they're going to look into that. I can tell you that they've already started talking about some flexibility in the way the project officer was going to refer to this issue. Meaning, let's assume that you had some work packages within a reporting period, and some of them were completed and some are not, although they should have been completed during this period. And you have great justifications for that. Either a justification for not completing the work package at all, or for completing it later on in, let's say, in the next reporting period. So they already stated that the project officers will have some flexibility here to approve payments for partially completed work packages. But it's completely in the hands of the project officer, and there are no specific rules to that. There is no criteria that was published for that. It's according to their judgment. It's very open at this point. We'll see later on how it develops.
No. All right. Then you put here actual utilization of budget is not visible to the EC.
Yeah. So we are still in the area of principles of understanding the lump sum model. And in line with everything I said so far, there is a big question mark, especially for those who have this experience from the past for actual cost model, about how exactly the European Commission is going to approve the payment. I understand that it's for a completed work package, but don't we need to show anything about expanding here? So the answer is, according to the European Commission official statement, is that you don't need to provide any evidence to your expenditures. They are not going to look into the actual utilization of the budget within the work package. And this is a very important message. It kind of completes the lump sum model. That's the main principle here. I have to mention that there might be exceptions to that, which I will touch later on. But just keep in mind that they simply want to pay for the work package. It's kind of having a contract with, let's say, a provider or supplier. You want to buy something from him, and he gives you a quote for how much it's going to cost, and you say yes, sign off on that. He provides the goods, you pay him the money. That's kind of a similar principle here. This is the kind of the basic scheme of the lump sum model. You don't ask this provider how exactly he structured the price quote and how exactly the provider spend the money that you pay him for that.
Okay.
So we have the same principle here.
All right. Thanks for this. Do you think that we have now covered the principles, or do you have anything to add, or is that okay?
Yep.
All right. Then let's move on to the next block here. The business as usual. You have put yourself in the rundown.
So lump sum model definitely presents something which is it's new. It's a new way of looking into that. And I can tell you out of experience just from the past, let's say, a year or so, that many people find it hard to digest this new model because it requires you to think differently, especially if you were used to the traditional actual cost model. So we talked about the principles, but we need to keep in mind that some elements are the same as before. And the same, it means they are identical to what you know from the traditional actual cost model. And specifically, we're talking about the reporting and the payments. What does it mean? Reporting, it means that lump sum model projects will have to report like regular projects, meaning you're going to have these periodic reports according to the set of reporting periods set by the project officer, and of course a final report. The report will include progress report and also sort of financial reports. Now, the financial reporting here, of course, is going to be minimal. It's basically going to say, we have completed that and that work packages, and the money that was assigned to that should be paid to us. That's basically their financial reporting under the lump sum. But we will have the same structure for the progress reports, and the financial reports is going to be adapted to the new scheme. So definitely reporting here is as usual. As for the payments, also going to be identical to what we know from before, meaning it starts with the pre-financing payment, which is the payment that the coordinator receives after signing the grant agreement prior to the project start date, and then the coordinator should distribute this pre-financing to the partners. Typically, this pre-financing varies between 30% of the overall grant up to 90% of the overall grant. It depends on all sorts of factors. The financial officer and the project officer decides on that. It depends. Basically, it varies between 30 to 90%. But it's a decision of the European Commission about what exactly is going to be the percentage. In one of the recent projects that we are coordinating, we started coordinating, we got 80% pre-financing. Yeah. So we're going to have this pre-financing, and then you have the rest of the interim and final payments according to the reporting of the periodic reports. Like in the regular actual cost model, nothing has changed in that matter. Another thing which is kind of similar to the regular actual cost model is the issue of flexibility of the budget utilization. But here we need to be careful. there are some restrictions under the lump sum model about moving money between partners or within a specific beneficiary's budget between the work packages. There are restrictions on that, and they are very strict. I will explain this in a bit. But if you're going to have minor changes of the budget structure during the project, similar to what we know from the actual cost model, you simply need to acknowledge, you need to, let's say, inform the project officer of that and acknowledge that in the reporting phase. And that would be it, meaning they will accept. However, if we're looking at budget shifts which are more substantial, then we need to be careful with that. And I will touch there are two big issues with the lump sum. One of them is this limited flexibility. I will get to this soon as we progress. So that's about basically knowing that a lot of the mechanism that we know from the actual cost model still applies here.
Well, very well. Thanks. Now we reach to the next block of the episode here.
Right.
How does it work? Can you take us through that?
Yep. How is it done? So let's start with the phase where you prepare your application. And here there is a new requirement that was not, we had nothing to compare to that requirement in the actual cost model. And this requirement is that we need to provide a detailed budget for the execution of the project, which includes information of all budget items per work package per participant in a dedicated Excel sheet provided by the European Commission. You need to download it from the portal. You must work with this Excel sheet, and you cannot amend it. It's fixed. It's very hard to work with that because it doesn't have the full flexibility that you know in Excel sheets. Most of it is locked. You just need to type in the information in specific fields, and you can't add budget items. You can't edit the budget items. You just need to put in the figures, meaning for personnel exactly. So I'm not going to get into full details about this Excel sheet, but for the personnel, you need to mention how many person month and what would be the cost per unit here, meaning the cost per person month, and that's it. Number of travels multiplied by, let's say, the average cost of travel. Now, it sounds similar to what you have done, let's say, when preparing a regular budget.
Mm-hmm.
But trust me, working with this Excel sheet, it's much more difficult because it's rigid. It doesn't allow you to do changes or have calculations. You can't use any calculations over there.
Oh, nice.
And you must use this Excel sheet. And once you're done, you must upload it to the system and provide all the information. Another layer of information in this Excel sheet, which in fact was not required before at all, is about the equipment. As you probably know, when you refer to equipment in the program, you must refer to its depreciation value multiplied by the actual time the equipment is going to be in use. Now, in the actual cost model, you simply put a number. You don't provide a full calculation. You don't provide detailed explanations about it. But here, you have a dedicated sheet within the Excel sheet just for the depreciation cost list of all participants. So it's kind of a different level of details compared to what we have knew before. And there is no way around that. And this is
Okay, this sounds a little inflexible. But did you yourself in your own team, in your own organization, did you make an Excel sheet copying, sort of mirroring that, where you would be able to work and fill in those figures and play a little bit with the format where there were flexibility, and then copying it into this unflexible format afterwards?
true. So in many cases, we had some kind of scaffold in the form of, let's say, a sidetrack Excel sheet for us, for our needs. And once it's done, put all the information into this fixed and rigid Excel sheet. Definitely an overhead. It takes more time.
Sure.
I can tell you that this is something that we encourage partners to refer to this as soon as possible, because although it's an Excel sheet, still working with that entails more work compared to what we knew before. Or I can just give you an example, two examples that can intrigue or explain why it's harder. The first thing is that you need to provide information per work package. Now, prior to that, in the actual cost model, there were costs that were kind of an horizontal cost. For example, travel costs. You don't need to allocate specific travel per work package in the proposal stage. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, or is premature, or you can't really assess that. But now you don't have a choice. You have to allocate a travel per work package. And the same goes to any other item here that is listed in this Excel sheet. Now, the other thing here is that you need to think deeper on the execution phase, because of the main principle that you're going to be paid for a completed work package. Meaning the budget plan per work package is much more important compared to what we had before.
Indeed, but because you can't know.
So
it's a research project. You don't know these kind of things. It's it baffles me, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, many times we find ourselves in kind of a chicken and egg problem with this Excel sheet and construction of the projects under the lump sum model. It entails a lot of issues. So my recommendation is to simply take more time, put more time into that, invest more time and effort into preparing this this dedicated Excel sheet for presenting the lump sum project. Now, important thing for you to know is that this Excel sheet eventually is relevant only for the evaluation phase, meaning the reviewers are going to look into that, and they are going to be asked whether the budget allocation seems reasonable to them based on what you put in this Excel sheet. And it ends there. Meaning this Excel sheet is not going to continue with this project to the execution phase. During the execution phase, you don't get into that resolution. As I said earlier, they are not going to look into the actual utilization of the budget. The only thing that you will have is the bottom line per work package. This is going to appear in the grant agreement. How much money per beneficiary is allocated per work package.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. So how does it work with how do they measure that? Is that then it's the deliverables, milestones? How have they made the setup of checking the balances?
Well, basically, it should work similar to what they've done before, looking into, let's say, the products of what you've done. Of course, deliverables, milestones, tasks. You have tasks in the work packages, so they can ask you, have you done this and that tasks? Maybe ask for evidence for specific tasks. And as in many other dimensions, the trust system is working here. Meaning, in most cases, the basic assumption is that they are going to trust the people that perform these projects, that execute these projects. Yes, of course, in case at some point there is a breach of confidence in you, they may go back and review that. But let's not open that door.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said earlier, the basis is reporting on what you have done in a specific work package. Once it's done within the reporting period, because the payments are aligned with the reporting periods, they will approve the payments only for the completed work packages. Now, there is a tricky thing here, and it has to do with the way that we plan the work packages. Prior to that, in the actual cost model, we didn't really think about, we didn't have any constraints about the timeline when planning the work package structure. We just put them in a logical fashion according to how we believe they should work, meaning which work package will follow which work package, or maybe several work packages should work in parallel, or of course, definitely fit into each other, or have mutual milestones or deliverables. We didn't have constraints around that. Okay, we had the full freedom to do that. But here we do have some sort of constraint, because we have a motivation to get the approval for payment for completed work packages in the reporting period, meaning we have the motivation to align the work package structure to the reporting periods, and not get into a position where a work package spans over several reporting periods. Okay, so a recommendation here, which we definitely can make, is that, of course, keep this in mind and split long or horizontal work packages to meet the reporting periods of the project. I can tell you that the evaluators were instructed to note that, meaning they are aware of the fact that a work package, which, let's say, normally would be, let's take a horizontal work package like the project management. So they are aware to the fact that now, instead of single work package for project management from month 1, let's say, to month 36, is now going to appear like 2 or 3 work packages, one after the other.
What? So you have to make several work packages under one work package. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And not only they're doing that, a few months back, I don't remember exactly when, the European Commission actually increased the page limit of the templates of the proposals which are supposed to follow the lump sum model. Just because of that, they added 3 more pages.
But that seems absurd.
Correct.
But how does that work out in all practicality? Have you how is it with the projects that you have the proposals you have written and the proposals that you have won for projects?
We're running, we proposed several, and we are already running 2. We are coordinating 2. Let's say that so far we didn't had any big issues with that. It's definitely putting some confusion into the system. For example, one of the things which is unclear, but I can tell you that there is a solution to that, is what happens if you have the same work package simply split across the project. For example, the management, as I mentioned, and also the communication dissemination activities. Do you need to replicate the full work package each time in the proposal? So my answer to that is no, meaning you do need to replicate it, split it into, let's say, 2 or 3 work packages. But instead of, you don't need to copy the full text. We simply write down there that this is the second, let's say, the second work package of the same work package, the following work package, because of the lump sum structure. Simply, a very simple explanation in the work package description of the second or maybe third instances of this work package. Now, there is another issue here. Again, an issue which is definitely a chicken and egg issue. When you prepare your application, you don't know what would be the timing of the reporting periods. This is something which is set only after your project is selected for funding. So what do? How do you align the work package structure to the reporting periods? Now normally the reporting periods is typically, meaning in most cases, either once a year or once every 18 months. Okay? But you don't know that ahead. So what do? And the answer here is simple. You do whatever you want, meaning assume that you will have, let's say, a reporting period every year and build the work packages accordingly. Once your project is selected for funding, you will the project officer will inform you about the timing of the reporting periods. But from this point on, there is room for kind of negotiation with the project officer. And it can work in either direction. Either you tell the project officer, we build the project according to the scheme of reporting period every year. And if you agree to that, that's great. And if not, can you change it? And the other way around, saying, okay, we set it up to be once a year, but we see that it's every 18 years and the project officer does not want to change it. And you ask for time to change the work package structure accordingly. And they will allow you to do that. Okay, because they are aware of that.
But
so
but it sounds like that that there might be some people in the system, in the EU system, the project officers that knows that there are some issues here. Have you talked to anyone of your contacts? Did any of your project officers mention anything? Or
in the past month or so, I had this discussion with 4 different project officers. 2 of them are project officers of the 2 lump sum projects that we are coordinating, and the 2 others are project officers that we are working with on different projects.
Mm-hmm.
All 4 of them came up with basically the same answers, which the first one is that all the official statements that I mentioned, they are repeating these. And then all, let's say, hard questions that I asked them, they said, we don't have a good answer yet. And that there are still internal discussions about how to handle all these scenarios. And there are plenty of scenarios here about the actual implementation of these lump sum projects. And they simply say, stay tuned to more information later.
Mm-hmm. But are there anyone defending it or liking the way that these functions?
No, you don't. And I definitely can say that all 4 of them express some kind of inconvenience with this new scheme.
That you can understand. Well, I bet you that there is a lot of discussions going on internally about this system, for sure. And many of them are probably quite feel quite inconvenient about having to navigate in this.
Right. Definitely. And speaking of being inconvenient, I will in a second touch two big issues with the lump sum. And definitely, I got a lot of, let's say, interesting responses from all four of them about these issues. But let me just complete one more issue before that. We discussed the issue of the internal dependencies between the partners due to this new structure, which puts the work package in the center. And for that matter, we strongly recommend that the consortium agreement that you're going to have for each new project following the lump sum model will touch this issue and refer to potential scenarios of defaulting partners. Because if we look at the past, when you had the actual cost model and one of the partners was not working according to plan and not delivering the goods, while you were working, the fact that there is a defaulting partner here did not affect the payment that you were supposed to get from the European Commission. Meaning you will get for your work, that's the actual cost model. Even if one of your partners is not delivering, and let's say that the entire project fails, but you still get paid.
But this is a huge difference. It's then you need to keep a close eye on the partners.
Right, exactly. So in the past, we didn't have to think about penalties in the consortium agreement towards defaulting partners. Actually, in the DESCAD, I think there was kind of a minor penalty segment, but it wasn't really customized to lump sum model. So now the thing is that definitely you need to think about it. You need to think of, let's say, a system in the consortium agreement to ensure that you will get this compliance and a clear penalty system for defaulting partners. What I can add to that, which is important, is that the DESCA template, which is the DESCA is kind of the most popular model for consortium agreement available. It's not by the Commission, but it was already in place for about 15 years by now, and it's the most popular one, and it's accepted by many people. Until today, and specifically today, February 6th, does not refer to lump sum funding at all. They mentioned this on their website, meaning they said that you need to adapt it to the available model should be adapted to lump sum model, but the template that they provide does not do that. However, today, they had a conference which they promised to publish the new version of the template, which should refer to the lump sum model implementation. I didn't see it yet. I don't know what's inside, but it's definitely interesting to see what they've done over there. And if it's indeed effective, then I would recommend following that. So that's about the consortium agreement and the partner dependencies.
Yeah. Then you are mentioning here two big issues.
So yeah, there are two big issues here with lump sum. I will start with the potential financial audits, and it goes like that. Keep in mind that the official statement I mentioned before is that the European Commission is not going to look into the actual utilization of the budget, meaning they are not going to check how exactly you use the money. That's an official statement. And I want to trust them, and I want to follow this, and I hope this will be actually the reality. However, and this is an important thing, if you read carefully the grant agreement that you sign when you get a lump sum agreement, you will see that Article 25 of this grant agreement, which is the article that sets the option to review and audit your project, is verbatim the same one as in the regular grant agreement. Meaning that although you signed a lump sum grant agreement, still the European Commission holds full mandate to go and do full reviews and full financial audits on all the records of all beneficiaries in the project, like before. Now, we need to keep another thing in mind here. The fact that the European Commission says you don't need to keep full track of your expenses, and we don't under the lump sum model, and you don't need to keep timesheets. That's their statement. But many, or maybe most or all of the beneficiaries, especially in Europe, they need to follow local laws anyways, and to keep financial and accounting information on a regular basis. It's nothing there is no way out of that. It means that the financial records for accounting purposes should be there for all beneficiaries. And add that to the fact that the European Commission keeps the mandate to have these audits, means that they can definitely go and see what exactly you have done in the project if they want to. Now, at some point, I actually asked, I communicated, I had communication with the legal team in DG Research about this issue. And I wanted to get a clarification from them about that. So their first reaction was kind of sticking to the official statement, saying the actual utilization of the budget is not going to be visible, etc. But then I said, yes, but what about Article 25? Do you revoke this? Do you say that it's not in force anymore? And then it took them 3 months to respond. And I got a detailed response saying, you are right. It might be possible that we can have these audits. And the accounting records, these are the records that we're going to work with in these audits. So in that respect, what I want to say is that just bear this in mind. Simply keep your financial records as usual. Make sure that you are in line with the practices of your financial department in your institution. Don't do anything special here. Don't think that the lump sum model means that you don't need to keep track on your expenses. Nothing like that. Just keep the regular practice in that sense.
Yeah. Guys, this is taxpayers' money.
Exactly. Exactly.
You are having a project, you're spending public money, so
I agree. Exactly. It's public funding. Exactly. And my belief, according to everything I discussed with these project officers and other representatives of the Commission, is that they really believe they are going to follow their official statement, meaning they don't want to have these audits. So I believe that in most cases, this is what's going to happen. But in case it doesn't, and they decide to audit you, you'd better be prepared for that.
Look, there's no reason to believe or to think that there won't be audits. They might change the practices, they might do it less. Of course there are going to be audits. Alone for the reason that you need to have this in a system where you hand out public money. People will walk more around, try to cut corners and take money out of the system if you don't have a threat. It's like this. So the threat needs to be there, but I think everybody's going to be very happy that it's going to be less.
Mm-hmm. Right. I agree. So that was one big issue. Second one has a flexibility. So I mentioned the flexibility before, and indeed there are some flexibility. Let's start with the good news. The good news, I will try to sum it up like that. Any change in the work plan that you're going to have during the execution that does not affect the project goals and is agreed between the partners and does not involve transfer of money between work packages or partners at all is allowed, of course. Meaning, if you're doing change of work without shifting money, definitely it's allowed. You have this high level of flexibility. It will be also allowed if, as I said earlier, that the transfer, if you do need to transfer money and it's not a significant amount of money, again, it's okay. You will have this high budget flexibility. You just need to report in the periodic report, and that's it. You don't need to do anything beyond that. But then we have also bad news. And here it's the important thing. This is where any change that you may want to have that entails shifting of funds between work packages, and then we can also talk about shifting money between categories and partners, meaning any significant change of funds during the project, which is something that can happen in these projects. Always it happens that you need to shift some funds from one work package to another or between partners, will require a mandatory contract amendment. Now, for those who are not familiar with that, contract amendment is a process that once you start working on a specific project funded by the European, by the Horizon Europe project program, if you need to go through a contract amendment, it's a process that can take 2, 3, 4 months. It's a process which entails paperwork, and then all sorts of processes within the commission, and they may had several revisions of that. It's not a simple thing to go through. And by the way, not always contract amendments are approved. So it's another issue to keep in mind. And the thing here is that they made it a mandatory thing. Now, shifting funds between work packages is a very common scenario in many projects because there is a gap between the plan and the actual execution of the project. Many times we don't really think through about all the consequences of the work plan during exactly. So this scenario of saying, hey, I let's say overestimated work package 5 and underestimated work package 5, in the actual cost model, the traditional model, it wasn't an issue. I simply moved the resources over there. That's it. I didn't even need to report that. But under the lump sum model, because everything is fixed around the work package, it requires a mandatory contract amendment.
No.
Now it's not done yet. We're not finished yet, because
Okay.
there are two conditions for this contract amendment. You must meet these two conditions. The second condition is easy, is the justification, meaning that you need to show that you really need to have this shift. In most cases, I don't see an issue with this second condition. The big problem is with the first condition. And the first condition is that you can have this kind of shift of funds via the contract amendment only from an active work package, meaning a work package that was not completed yet and definitely not reported in the periodic report yet. And this may entail a lot of problems. Because, do you want to ask anything about that?
Yes. Well, it's first thing that brings to mind is that now all partners, they need to every single partner need to be extremely careful about the budget they make, because they need to plan everything ahead as much as they can in the budget, which of course is can plan a lot of anxiety in people. But
That's true. And just to demonstrate this, give you some food for thought, I will go through three basic scenarios. The first one is the simple one, and the simple one is a scenario where you are working within a specific work package. It's not completed yet, and you know already that you want to shift some of the money to a later work package, and you have good justification for that. So that would be the simple and feasible scenario, meaning you can do that. There is no problem with that. However, Um, if you in a scenario where you already completed the work package, first work package, and let's say that you didn't fully utilize the budget for this work package, and about you know about the future work package that may need this money, but your decision point about having this shift of money and, of course, initiating the contract amendment is after the first work package has been completed, meaning it took you some time to realize that you need to have this shift of funds. And think about it, it's quite normal that you will realize only at the end of the work package that you didn't fully utilize the budget, or towards the end, or maybe soon afterwards. So as long as you realize this before the work package ended, there is no problem. But if you realize that want to initiate it afterwards, it's not possible. You simply cannot do that.
But everything you say now, that has but nothing to do with simplification. It makes things more complex. You need to plan. Sometimes you need to plan out of this world. You won't know things that you're supposed to know. It's basic of a research project is that
Correct.
sometimes things goes, always things go in all other directions, and you need to adjust things.
No, no simplification here. On the contrary, this is actually much, much worse than what we have in the actual cost model, where we simply don't have these constraints. And now moving on to the third scenario, which is in fact the most, I think, the most logical scenario. And then you will see that you will fail here as well. And the most logical one is the case where you had a work package early in the project where you underutilize the budget, meaning you have spare budget. At the end of the work package, you know that you have extra budget over there, but you don't know what to do with that because you're not aware still about future needs of the budget in other work packages, because it may take time until you will reach a work package which requires more resources. And it can take months or even years before you get to this point where you realize that you have a work package that runs low on budget and you want to fuel it with the extra budget that you have. And that scenario, which is the most logical one to happen, and it happens in this type of projects, again, is something which simply we cannot do. We may have the justification, of course, but the first work package is not active anymore, meaning you cannot transfer the funds from that one to the other. So but as you said, the bottom line here is that any beneficiary working in these lump sum projects should be well aware of how they expend the budget in each work package. Be aware for that, and everyone, all the consortium members together should be aware of these flexibility issues and actually evaluate in each work package towards the end of the work package whether they need to launch a contract amendment for shifting funds from one work package to another. And not always it's possible, but at least try to go through this process and assess this.
But is there any way that you can go back to the commission and negotiate any of the terms in, or any of the budget, for instance, budget elements in the grant agreement, if you reach a situation like this?
No, it's not possible. No, there is no way to change the grant agreement. What you can do is to again reassess the project execution plan during the negotiation phase, revisit all your decisions about the work packages and how you allocate the budget there during the negotiation before signing the grant agreement. And if you think that you need to change the work plan in a way that will not change the goals of the project, but will make your life easier in managing these work packages and budgets, then I suggest doing that at this phase, and the project officer is likely to allow you to do that. If you explain that, they will allow you to do that in most cases.
Okay, so they will have that kind of flexibility.
Yep. So
Now, given all these elements here, it's you as a private grants consultancy company. I bet you that through your experiences, you can guide your clients through this as well as you can as private consultants, and now you also been trying it yourself, no?
yeah, for sure. And from time to time, we are having these free webinars about several topics, including the lump sum, and we open it to everyone, and we present it in more depth, and we are answering questions over there. So simply follow our newsletter and publications about these free webinars.
Mhm.
You are all welcome.
This I can, of course, very much recommend. It's very important to use all the services that all the people, organizations that are offering support in this respect. The European Commission, they of course have their own information, but you also have companies like Yoram here, like Enspire Science, that are running courses, often free of charge, as you, and probably also on YouTube. Or what?
Yeah, they are not on YouTube. We are using our own platform for sharing these, and simply reach out, and we will lead you.
Yeah, you have your own platform. That's definitely recommend. It's Inspire Science has developed a platform with many different things and entries and information on different elements, especially ERC. Oh, that's it, Yoram. We need to keep an eye on the time here. So last element here, one of the last elements, news and updates.
Well, we see that lump sum is definitely gaining more and more traction, and recently the EAC mentioned that all the EAC grants, except for the EAC Pathfinder Open, will follow the lump sum model. Also in the ERC, we see that the ERC Advanced Grant this year is going to follow the lump sum model for the first time under ERC. Maybe they will expand it also to the other types of ERC grants. And definitely we see more and more under the two. So we need just to follow that.
But maybe do you think that given the signals that you were receiving from the commission, that is it moving too fast before they actually know the consequences of the of this instrument throughout the full system? Because there must also sit clerks in the system that await a little bit what is rolling towards them when the reporting period starts to come in, stuff like this.
I fully understand. I can also tell you that I mentioned the ERC one, and the ERC there is a big question mark about how exactly it's going to work, because it's kind of contradicting everything that ERC is built on. And again, I have these discussions with project officers also in the ERC, and I can tell you that we all share the same opinions here, meaning they share opinions like I have on that. about the unclarity about how exactly it's going to look like, potential problems in the implementation, contradicting the spirit of the ERC. So that's one case that definitely would be interesting to check within, let's say, in a year or 2 or 3 from now.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's basically the news and updates that I have about that.
Okay. All right. Then we're almost done.
Right.
Last element we need to talk about the main problems.
Main problems with lump sum?
Oh yeah, lump sum in general around the topic.
Well, I mentioned some of the, let's say, the technical problems. I think that on top of that, the main issue is a conceptual issue. As I see it, and most of the questions that we get are around that, is actually to realize exactly how it's going to be applied, which is different than the actual cost model compared to the past. That's the main thing. We see people again and again saying that, okay, we understand what lump sum is doing, but still they are following kind of an actual cost model thinking.
It's, I think a lot of this podcast episode has outlined some things that we don't really know yet. So we'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for taking us all through this, Yoram, as much as you can within an hour and 20 minutes, as much as we know.
Right.
It's been great.
So it's simple.
Yeah. Yoram, thank you so much. Now I'm just going to land this episode like I always do. So first of all, dear listeners, thank you for listening to the end. Yoram, thank you so much for this collaboration. I'm very, very happy and proud, as I said in the beginning. Mind you all, this is a possibility for everybody who wants their own podcast episodes, who wants to collaborate with me on getting content that they collaborate together with me for your organization. I have made a specific platform on my thegrant.eu website for collaboration. For collaborations, you will get your own site. Yoram here, he has his own site. You can go in, check out the other 2 episodes, the collaboration we have here. And there I have also gathered links to Yoram's site, Enspire Science. They have lots of great content, lots of links, lots of information, a lot of webinars, a lot of free stuff on how to deal with EU R&D funding, and especially the ERC and the research side of it. It's great. And while you are in there, of course, check out thegrant.eu. That's my platform. That is where you get all the rest of my episodes in my normal stream, The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Have around 100 episodes now. Lots to browse through also. With if you have interest in listening to this, there should definitely be content there for you. Well, Yoram, that's it. Let's say goodbye to dear listeners. Bye.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.
You have been listening to The Grand Collaborations, a part of The Grand Podcast.